Welcome to the Bourbon Jerk. Thanks for your click. So a few weekends ago, it was Father's Day, and it also happened to be my birthday. It was kind of a big one. So I decided that I wanted to take a trip down to the Bourbon Trail to celebrate. It had been about 3 years since my last trip down, and I had a few places in mind that I really wanted to visit. Now, I'm in Metro Detroit, so to get down to Kentucky, we head due south through Ohio. And the first place that I wanted to check out, New Riff, which is just across the Ohio border in Newport, Kentucky. Now, right next to Newport is Covington. And a few months ago, Chad and Sarah from It's Bourbon Night did a video about Covington. I'll put a link to it here or here or in the description below. After watching that video, we decided that we wanted to book a night at the North by Covington Hotel. Super nice hotel. Awesome bar and restaurant right downstairs. Now, we got into town pretty late, and after we checked in, we decided to go across the street to Rich's Proper for a quick bite and a cocktail. Afterward, we headed back to the hotel, but we stopped in at the Knowledge Bar and Social Room right downstairs. Now, they had a pretty solid whiskey selection. I actually had a pour of the Colonel E.H. Taylor Straight Rye, which I had never seen before. It was pretty darn good. Early the next day, we headed over to New Riff. And since we got there just a little bit early, we decided to check out the Party Source, which is this gigantic liquor store that actually shares a parking lot with New Riff. This place is kind of on the order of a Total Wine as far as size and selection. So I looked around a little bit, and that's where I actually picked up the first bottle of the trip. This James E. Pepper Decanter Barrel Proof Bourbon. Now, a friend of mine had given me a sample of this a few months back, and I just loved it. And I've been on the lookout for a bottle ever since. Hadn't been able to find it anywhere near me, so as soon as I saw this one on the shelf, I knew it was coming home with me. Now, this is just a fantastic bottle for $60. Before I tell you more about New Riff, I'm going to tell you what's going on over at Into the AM. They've got their 4th of July sale going on until July 8th, 30% off site-wide, and they just dropped a whole bunch of new graphic tees and tanks. Cool new designs like this one. And this one, which seemed about perfect for 4th of July. So, 30% off site-wide. Don't forget to use code word jerky at checkout. You'll save an extra 10% on top of that. Plus, you'll be helping to support the channel. Now back to the video. So on to New Riff. Super cool place. Definitely did not disappoint. Very modern facility, impressive store, and a truly exceptional bar upstairs. Now, we did the tour, and our tour guide was Dan, who was outstanding. We learned lots of cool stuff about New Riff. What I didn't know is how the distillery is actually built on top of an actual aquifer, and how they've learned how to kind of harness this resource and use it in their production. So New Riff is just one of those brands that I just kind of gravitated to when I was first getting into bourbon about 5-6 years ago. I think that they make rock solid products at a very modest price. Now, the impression that I get about their philosophy is that they make whiskey for people who like to drink whiskey, not for people who like to collect it or for those who like to flip limited edition releases for profit. Here's a few perfect examples. While I was down there, they had their Silver Grove releases for 2024, which is a limited edition distillery only release for $60. No premium pricing, no lines. Now there's a bourbon and a rye. The bourbon comes in at 116.2 proof. The rye is 116.4, and these are both absolute hitters. If you can get down to the distillery and pick these up, I highly recommend. I also picked up their American Single Malt. Now, I wasn't sure about this one going in, but we did get to try it on the tour, and I thought it was super complex and interesting. I was also able to grab a bottle of their 8-year rye, which was just released that weekend. And I think this was about $68 for an 8-year rye. We were told that these should start making their way into the distribution chain in the near future, and it will be part of their core range along with the 8-year bourbon. After we finished up at New Riff, we decided to head down to Lexington. We've been to Lexington plenty of times before. We've actually got some family down there. In fact, I've got a family member who is on the faculty at the University of Kentucky. As part of our visit, she thought it would be cool to show us the brand new Jim Beam Institute for Kentucky Spirits right on the university campus. Now, if that's not the most Kentucky thing I've ever heard of, I don't know what is. They legit built a mini distillery and rickhouse right on campus. It's awesome. What a time to be a student at UK. They just started filling barrels. I think the rickhouse only had like 8 or 10 barrels when we were there. And I kind of thought it was cool to see an empty rick house. You really get an appreciation for how they're designed and built. The following morning, we headed west. I stopped over at one of my favorite distilleries, Four Roses. I had to stop at the visitor center to see what they might have for sale. Boom. 2 bangers. First one is an OBSQ, 11 years old, and it's 58.8%, so 117.6 proof, and it's a tier 4. The second one is just a little bit younger, 10 years, 11 months, tier 6, and it's 62.2%, so 124.4 proof. These are just outstanding. And what I didn't know till a few days ago is that there's actually a bit of a science to reading the labels on these Four Roses picks. I'll put a link to it here or in the description below for you to check out. After Four Roses, we headed over to Bardstown Bourbon Company. Now, on our last trip down, we had visited Heaven Hill and drove past Bardstown, so we kind of knew that it was going to be pretty impressive. But as we drove onto the campus and got up close, I was just blown away by the sheer size and scope of the operation there. I've heard people try to describe what it's like going to the Grand Canyon and just kind of being in awe of the magnitude of what they're seeing. I've never been to the Grand Canyon, but it's probably the same feeling. We got there, I don't know, about 20 minutes before our scheduled tour, and there's a bar in the main lobby, so we ordered a round. I ordered the old fashioned there, and it just might have been the best old fashioned I've ever tasted. It was also served on this block of clear ice with the Bardstown logo stamped on the ice. Classy touch. Our tour guide was Derek, who was super knowledgeable and friendly. The tour shrewdly ends in the gift shop, where we picked up some merch and checked out the bottles for sale. The first bottle that I grabbed was this small batch Stay Finished, which we got to try in the tour, and I really liked. We were told it's a distillery-only release, plus it says Happy Father's Day on it, so I knew this one had to come home with me. It's a really solid bottle, a lot of flavor packed into a 94 proofer. Seems like it's going to be an excellent summer sipper. They also had the new Green River Full Proof at just under 50 bucks. I've been seeing a lot of great reviews and feedback on this one around the whiskey tubes, so I'm looking forward to cracking it. Next, we grabbed this one, the collab release with Goose Island. So before I really got into bourbon, I was way into the craft beer scene. One of the releases that I look forward to every year was the Goose Island Bourbon County, which is kind of the OG of bourbon barrel stouts. We decided to pull the trigger on this one after we got a taster of it along with our dessert at the Bardstown Kitchen, which is what they call their on-site restaurant. My wife, who really doesn't care for bourbon too much, actually really liked this one, so I figured we'd had to grab it, right? The last bottle that we picked up at Bardstown is another distillery exclusive, and it's this one. This is the Bardstown Bourbon Company bottle that's part of the Bardstown Collection, which was put together as part of National Bourbon Week. I didn't know about this, but apparently it's a 7-bottle series with each bottle being put out by a different distillery. I think there's one from Jim Beam, one from Heaven Hill, one from Lex Row, and a few others. Comes in a fancy box, so you know what's good. Bardstown, who's typically kind of the epitome of telling you what's in the bottle and what's in the blend, there's nothing on this bottle except the proof. Okay, I think it's like 125, 130, whatever. I actually had to find a video of the head distiller, Steve Nally, telling me what it is. And it's a blend of 10 and 14-year bourbon, which was then finished in a toasted barrel, I think he said for another 3 or 4 months. So I'm looking forward to trying this one. So after we spent most of our day at Bardstown, which was just a fantastic way to spend my birthday, had to stop over at Heaven Hill just to see what we might find. And we got there just before they closed. And on the shelves, we found these 2 select stocks. Now, I'd never seen these. I never even heard of them. I didn't have time to, do a Google search to see if people were saying they were any good or not. Saw them, grabbed them, and brought them home. They are both a blend of 7 and 12-year-old bourbon, then finished in a different barrel. Now, this one is an Armagnac finish. This one is a sherry barrel finish. What I thought was interesting about the finish, it was a finish for 4 years. So, this is some really old bourbon here. Can't be bad, right? So anyway, I had to bring them home. I'll tell you this, the Armagnac one is fantastic. It's kind of like a cigar blend. The sherry barrel kind of drinks more like a Scotch finish. It's interesting, really good. Love them both. So there you have it, a recap of my Father's Day / birthday weekend on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Did we go a little bit hog wild with buying bottles? Yeah, absolutely. This is pretty ridiculous. Will I ever go and buy this much bourbon in a weekend again? Probably not. So what do you guys think? Did I do all right? Did I miss anything I should have got? if you've been down to the Bourbon Trail, what were the best bottles that you scored there? Anyhow, cheers. Thanks for watching. Stay jerky.